Check. That is better. Okay. There's something that might be holding you back on drums. And I know wherever I speak because it's the same thing that was holding me back. Because of this channel, I've been lucky enough to coach drummers from all over the world. And I've seen all types of ages, ability levels, and approaches. But, and I'm not trying to be the barber telling you need a haircut, everybody I've coached has gotten past this barrier before even walking in the door. Give up. It's the willingness to make a mistake in public, to open yourself up for critique, to put your playing under a microscope. Unless you think I'm saying you have to do that with me, let alone a coach or teacher, when I did it, it was for my own eyes only. I was mostly my own critic. But I started recording myself and scrutinizing the playback and looking for things to fix. Then coming up with exercises to fix them and going back and recording myself again, then finding more things to fix. And it was a frustrating, humbling, monotonous, and ultimately highly rewarding experience that changed my playing forever. Like, it's true to say that before this process, when I was approaching my playing in kind of the conventional way, my growth was pretty flat. After this, it took a big jump. But what did I actually do? Because it's one thing to say, open your playing up for critique and just leave it there. But you probably want to know what to actually look for. So we'll get into that. But there's something else. If this is so powerful, why do so few drummers actually do it? Well, we'll talk about that. Because without addressing some of the root issues, a lot of drummers are going to continue robbing themselves of the single thing that could explode their playing. Like, just detonate it. Like, boom! I'm Nate, people call me the 80/20 drummer, and today on the channel, going to that scary place, and why it could make the single biggest difference in your playing. Stay tuned. And folks, today's video is brought to you by the folks over at JP Bouvet Method. Use the codes on your screen to save when you grab a free trial at the link below within the next week of when this video was published. More later, but for now, let's get on with the lesson. Let's first address why drummers don't do it. In fact, Chapter 1. Why more drummers don't do it. Of course, this is two-part. The first part is many just don't know how powerful it is. And we'll get into that. But there's another part too. The fear. At least for me. You might be saying, I'm not afraid. And I get it. A lot of my audience have played in bands, toured. A number of you are teachers. We're talking accomplished players. What does it matter if you haven't put your playing under the microscope or invited a teacher or peer to give you a no-holds-barred critique of your playing? So just to clarify, I'm not necessarily saying anybody else is scared. I'm just saying I was. And for good reason. I will make this solidly about me, and if you see a little of your own story in this, great. But I want to hypothesize. Without offending anybody, hopefully, I want to propose, gently, that it might be a wee little bit of fear in you as well. Wipe this from your consciousness if I'm wrong. But first, hear me out, and we can put a Back to Drums countdown on the screen. But I want to tell a story. A story about when I realized that, for me, fear was a factor.
Whoa.
No.
He's looking at me silently.
The idea for this video happened from two things that happened serendipitously in the same week. First, as you might know, I'm learning Spanish. Not very good, just trying to get by. In my spare time, to keep my listening up, I listen to podcasts, mainly on YouTube. Anyway, one of the things I was listening to while I did the dishes was this. She specializes in helping people improve their accents, to speak more neutrally, like a native speaker. That's not the important part. The important part is she gets to a part in the video where she says to truly improve your accent, you need to be ready to be vulnerable and to be open to feedback.
O lo hago perfecto o no lo hago. Es así como funcionan sus cabezas. O lo hago perfecto o no lo hago. Por lo tanto, esa misma autoexigencia que te ayudó en un momento, ahora mismo es lo que te bloquea. Eso es.
Then she says she'll listen to you and come up with exercises to help you improve specific things. Two things hit me in that moment. First was, this is what I do for my students. The second was I was scared. All these doubts started bubbling up. Like, won't this make me more self-conscious? I enjoy speaking Spanish right now. Will it take the fun and turn it into work? Will I be obsessed with every tiny error I make? So I become the conversational equivalent of a guy holding a hand over his face at a party pretending to part his hair because he thinks he has a pimple everyone's looking at? So that's my confirmation that this impulse exists in me. But what about in others? Back to drums. Anecdote the second. I received an email the other week asking me for printouts of a course. My courses have printouts, much like the courses of today's sponsor, JP Bouvet Method, where you can find step-by-step lessons where JP explains things so clearly it's impossible to misunderstand or be confused, and where there are beautiful PDFs for download of all the material. And where this October, I'll be shooting my own guest course. Discount codes on the screen, link below the player. Anyway, people often email me for printouts of the course material. Not because they need something to supplement the videos, because they want to print it out like a book and not even watch the course videos. Well, that's curious. There's so much a video communicates that you can't get from a transcription. Touch, relative volume, sound of the drums, timing, subdivision, body mechanics, stick height, etc. All of that is compressed in a sheet of music. It's a shorthand. But some people are apparently under the impression that an exercise is an exercise is an exercise. If it says 8/8 quarter on the page, if I play that sequence of events, I've won the exercise. But what about pronunciation? If I read a phrase in Spanish, I can get all of the words on the page right, but still miss all the nuances of local pronunciation. I also open up my community from time to time, and one of the perks of joining is people get video feedback. Want to know the percentage of people who sign up for the membership who take advantage of the opportunity to send me a video and get my feedback on it? Out of 20 to 30 people, 1 to 2. Now, I don't want to project it all. People have their own reasons, and I'm also happy that anyone is checking out any of my material, like my new course debuting this winter on JP Bouvet Method. Link below and coupon codes on your screen. Anyway, none of this is proof positive, but let's just say I sense some resistance to opening the door to people having the how of their playing scrutinized. Together with searching my own feelings, I have a wee tiny bit of suspicion that it might be because it's scary. And we'll talk about why I think it's scary. But first, I promise you guys a summary of some of the benefits. And though the benefits are many. For starters, let's talk about how I've seen scrutiny and feedback improve my playing, and that of many of my past and present coaching students. The simple reason is that books and written material are really good at telling us the what to play. If you want to learn the exact sequence of events of Steve Gadd's beat from 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, a written transcription will get you there. You can play all the same notes as Steve. Same with a transcribed Weckl solo. Or stick control, or a coordination exercise. Play the left foot where it says to play the left foot, follow the ink, and you're getting the sequence of events. Just like reading Spanish off the page with no errors in your thick American accent. But you can read boom chick off the page, and when you go to play it, it doesn't sound like this. The gap between what's written on the page and this is more what I'd call the how of drumming. And it's this that's the primary focus when I give feedback to students. I noticed your left hand volume is a little inconsistent. I noticed that when you're playing the bass drum and right hand together, they're not always together. I noticed that the subdivision tends to wander a little instead of being consistent. And somebody with experience, whether it's me or a teacher or a peer, can help you zero in on the 2 to 3 things out of the potentially hundreds you're paying attention to that are the most important. And the difference it can make in your playing is huge. These subtle things add up to a gestalt of sounding more pro. Just like little pronunciation things add up to a gestalt of an accent. But it's not just subtle things. Sometimes an outside perspective can help you spot basic errors you're making. For instance, I hadn't realized for many years that if my hi-hats and right foot weren't right together, they wouldn't sound together. There was no magic happening between my drums and the listener. I needed to make the sounds myself. And sure, it's probably a faster process if you have a trusted person who's not you to point out these details. But it doesn't have to be. You can do it yourself by knowing what to listen for, as we'll cover. But first, why it's scary. Chapter 2, Why It's Scary. I've spoken in other videos about the sophomore dip when people start learning the drums. You come in, you've got caveman grip, you're just wailing, ton of intensity and fun. Then, by year 1, you're a shadow of your formal self, tapping on a practice pad, trying not to screw up. Of course, I exaggerate, but it's a familiar cycle to anyone who starts taking lessons. And while some people can get stuck in that self-conscious dip, it's part of learning. You need to take something that's instinctive, for which you're relying on your gut, and drag it out into the bright light and put it under a magnifying glass and make the unconscious conscious. Just as you can be breathing completely fine without thinking about it. And if I ask you to make sure you breathe, all of a sudden you're thinking about it consciously. And that sucks, because now it's not flow state, it's coloring in the lines. A lot of us who had lessons when we were younger remember what this felt like. If we got through that to a phase where we felt good about our playing, we do not want to go back. To play, we have to be able to trust ourselves. And scrutiny, by ourselves or somebody else, calls a lot into doubt. All of a sudden, we have a head full of our flaws. How are we supposed to play like that? Well, how are we? If everything seems fine to you and I come along and say, you're rushing all of your offbeats, what do you do then? So there's the temporary, I'm up in my head thing, but I think there's also something deeper. What Carol Dweck calls fixed mindset. I know this one dead because I catch myself falling into it all the time. Basically, it's the belief, conscious or otherwise, that we'll always be the same. If we're good or bad at the drums, not only is that identity defining, but it's also chiseled in stone and there's nothing you can do about it. Of course, in the cold light of day, that sounds ridiculous. Unless you're one of my tiny percentage of talent dead-enders who leave nihilistic comments on my videos every so often, you probably acknowledge that with the right practice and material, people in general can improve on drums. But fixed mindset is insidious. It lurks inside us, just underneath our conscious thought. I'll feel it when I do badly in a jiu-jitsu roll. It takes really focusing on it. Hey, some part of me actually believes I'll never be any better than this at this skill I'm currently practicing, and that encompasses some big part of my identity as a person. Naming and shaming is huge. The next time you got stage fright or just dissatisfied with your playing after a practice session, ask yourself, deep down, do I believe I'll never improve? And that this current ability level defines me as a person? For most of us, this question doesn't even need an answer. Once dragged out into the light of day, fixed mindset usually skulks away to the shadows like some sullen sea monster. Which brings us to part 3. Chapter 3, How to Feedback. There are a couple things I do on the regular with my students to make sure that they never feel like a car with the hood open and the engine parts scattered all over the road, which nevertheless still needs to drive down the street. The first is to try to be minimally invasive. What that means is we try to make little interventions that will feed into their playing rather than ripping out all the walls and requiring them to build their playing from the ground up. For example, if somebody wants to work on their left hand, we might recommend something like I covered in last week's video, the push-pull system. But if they're working on other things, like improvising over beats, they don't have to think studiously about push-pull with everything they play. Indeed, I'll often make videos about how to not overinterpret push-pull, so you're not doing anything weird with your hands when you try to play a rock groove. It's also about the delicate balance of what's most useful now versus the downsides of making something that was automatic self-conscious. So there's an art to timing feedback so that nobody's drinking from the fire hose. But all of that makes it sound like it's only me, and it's decidedly not. It's mostly the students who adopt this mindset of being unafraid to have their playing scrutinized in public. But you're probably also here for some block and tackle about what to actually look at. Because as I've been saying all video, for the right player, you can be your own scrutinizer. So here are a few things to look at. The first and foremost is just the act of recording yourself and listening back. That's an act of bravery and a middle finger to fixed mindset. But now ask yourself, does it sound the way I expected it to? Why or why not? Very often, you'll discover that the things you thought were wrong with it, maybe a hiccup here or there, or feeling like you're repeating yourself, aren't the major things that pop out to you upon listening back. But here are the major categories of things I listen for, and you might recognize them from the very DNA of my channel. Timing. Is this rushing or dragging in obvious ways I hadn't noticed while I was playing? Related, does it seem settled, like a car with good traction, or does it seem frantic, like it's taking me by surprise? An indicator of the latter is subdivision that tends to sag and bunch, rather than a consistent distance between subdivisions. Dynamics and touch. Are my accents as differentiated as I intend them to be? In other words, are my dynamics upon listening back what I thought they were when I played? Very often, you'll discover a flattening of dynamics on your own recordings. Accents that aren't as accenty as you thought, and ghost notes that are almost as loud as the accents. In the category of touch, two separate things. Flamming, which in this context means not playing notes that are supposed to be together perfectly together, and zones, which means not hitting the drums in the spot you intend to hit them. All of those above things are the little pronunciation things that add up to that gestalt I was talking about before. Finally, idea flow. Am I fluid in the travel of ideas from my brain to the drums? Am I phrasing nicely and musically? Or am I repeating myself or buffering, i.e. stopping without intending to because the idea flow or physical execution of ideas gets interrupted? Postscript, a word of warning. When you open this box, be prepared for a multi-year journey. You have to be patient. Some of those fears are real, in that it's taking the red pill. From the Matrix, not in the modern Zoomer definition. But you'll see and hear things you can't unsee and unhear. So keyword is gentle. Once you've ripped off the Band-Aid and exposed your playing to scrutiny, whether your own or a coach's, now is the time to be gentle with yourself and keep that fixed mindset trap in mind. Always remind yourself that this is a temporary place along the journey to being the drummer you want to be, and that even here, it doesn't define who you are. And that's how you get the gig! And if you're interested in somebody else helping you with that stuff, I mean, that's what I do. And one great way to get access to my coaching is via the membership at JP Bouvet Method. Inside, you'll find a curated collection of some of my favorite drum courses out there, including the course I'll be shooting for JP in October. And if you want to get a little more feedback on your playing and the helping hand of a coach, you can check out my coaching programs right from inside the membership. Oh, and for the next 7 days after the published date of this video, you can save with the coupon codes on your screen. Just click the link below to get your free 7-day trial. Dudes, it's been real. Always enjoy these. See you again real soon in another lesson of the week. For which you... Guess we gotta fix that.